Can you guys see it? Okay,
Yes, we
it's
can.
recording. So, three, two, one. Hello, everyone. This is OCAPUCR, and then today we brought this slideshow here to actually give you guys a little Q&A session for many of the people who major in humanities and also, maybe even science as a traditional roots. But today's question is how to excel as a preliminary medical student majoring in psychology, shared by me, who is a researcher at UCR School of Medicine and a hypertension center. And then we have our interviewer, Briana Bizwaza. Whoa! Can you introduce yourself?
Thank you. Yeah, so my name is Briana Biswas, and I am currently pursuing a BA in psychology, and I'm with the pre-fund focus. So I'm an incoming freshman at UCR, and I'm so excited. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. So I wanted to have this interview going over the questions she provided for me to address, to help any of the freshmen out there who is studying preliminary medicine and also wants to go into this route of doing the medicine. You can be anyone. You can be a psychology major, you can be a humanities major, or you can be just a traditional people who's majoring in biology or biochemistry. But I will review and address the questions that these freshmen could have and also wanted to provide the answer the best for as a person who finished this route and currently working in the lab to pursue even further things such as physician scientists. So let's begin. First question, could you share background in psychology? Oh, shoot, never mind. Could you share background in psychology and describe your journey from that field to your current focus on the ecology research? So my name is Seonghyeon Kim. I graduated from UC Riverside with Bachelor of Arts in Psychology as a preliminary medical student, and my initial interest to major in psychology stemmed from the passion for psychiatry. And I also thought that it would be a great idea for me to have a psychology and the very humanities major background to have a very well-rounded for becoming a physician and a psychiatrist. And also, I actually involved in nephrology research because my PI, who was an attending back in the day when I was shadowing people, was actually the first ever, principal investigator I met to do my own research. And then he asked me to join his lab to do a research. And also, I realized that I thought psychology was something that is only related to psychiatry, but I realized that many people in every field of medicine, when they are sick physically, they probably have an emotional and a psychological distress too. And I realized that there was a chances and cases in the dialysis treatment and also in a hypertension center too. And then my research focused on, questioning those factors of what makes the better outcomes in the post dialysis center and also the kidney functions in addition to their relation to emotional well-being and also a lot of the other kidney related issues and finding their factors related to things such as hypertensions and diabetes. Is there a question?
No, that sounds good. Do you want me to go ahead and read the question when we go to the slides?
I think that's very good.
All right, so next question. So I was going through your LinkedIn a little LinkedIn stalking, saw that you were involved in, you had a startup and you founded some various organizations. So do you believe taking this more like entrepreneurial and like innovative approach is crucial for undergraduates and how they might influence their extracurricular pursuits for med school or graduate school?
Yeah. Not from me, but from the many medical school admission officers, it is very prevalent that they say that leadership is a very important role. And leadership is a very important in physician because a lot of times, a lot of the decision making that is coming from shared decision making with patients are only done by physician. There are a lot of great healthcare professionals, RN, PA, NP, and so much more. But at the end of the day, physician is the one who's going to have a conversation with patient to have a shared decision making. So one of the example I want to give it to you is when I shadowed oncologist. I remember oncologist asked a patient, uh, saying, do you want to try this again? Because the chemotherapy didn't work, the last trial. And then the patient was around 26 years old. And the patient asked her a question, like, would you do it if you're me? And then I remember my oncologist just sat down for like a few minutes and then he said, you know, I think if I was you, that I would probably do it again because I'm too young to die. And then even if I might not survive, I still want to try my best to be, to be surviving it. And after hearing that, that patient decided to go into another chemotherapy, regardless if it's working or not. But it worked. And he actually living up to a point that I'm seeing him today. And it was happening 2 years ago. So that's something that I really think why leadership matters. Because leadership is about you stepping up there and then telling your opinion too, and then telling your voices. If the if the physician said, I will follow whatever you say, maybe the guy didn't try chemotherapy. Maybe he said, I'm just gonna spend lots of my moments with my friends and family. But I feel like that moment, having the guts to say that I would try my best to, giving another try from a physician, I think that was a very much of a leadership position in a moment for we to highlight. And at the same time, um, I didn't start my company because I only wanted to have a leadership. Because if you think about it, if I start my company to have a leadership position, it would be kind of, it would be kind of not fun, because all I got to do is just become a leader. I can become a leader for other clubs and so much more. But I wanted to have my own company, and my company was actually dealing with some medicine. It was basically an app that provide people very short readings for all the like papers that are coming out in the medical and the psychiatry journals. And then I wanted people to have read those fun papers every day to a point where they can read about, papers from psychiatry and eventually lead it to the diminishing moments of a psychiatry stigma. Because I wanted people to read a lot about psychiatry and also know about it. Because I feel like the stigma about psychiatry comes from not knowing it, but at the same time, not talking about it enough. So I thought having that app to, expose people to read a lot about those journals and things for free and then for easier access that reduce the psychiatry stigma. And at the same time, I wanted to have a star company to give out the positions, internship position to the other, lower grade, people who wants to go into medicine so that they can explore and have a moments for them to, edit the papers, work in the information systems, and also, you know, have a moments like saying that, hey, I read about this paper and I thought this is really outstanding. Maybe I want to go into this kind of medicine and this kind of field too. So that was the reason I done a start company. It's kind of funny because I have done my start company with the two other friends, one from Korea University, the other one from UC San Diego, both of them were computer science majors. And then it was pretty good. It was going well. We did not make any money, but still, it was a very fun moment for us to work on it. We still have the company. We now have 4 people. We brought another designer. So we're still working on it. I think having a leadership is pretty good, but it doesn't have to be a start company because a start company costs a lot of passions, a lot of times, and a lot of headache. Because the more people you have to think about how you're going to pay them, how you're going to write out your papers, and how you're going to, spend resources. Because it takes a lot of money to do startup. It takes a lot of money. So that's something that I want to tell people.
Okay. And you seem to have a common theme of, addressing psychology and psychiatry within your extracurriculars. Do you think people should also have a common theme when choosing extracurriculars?
No, uh, the reason I think I have a very common theme is because I have a big passion for psychiatry. And I think people should do a themes, whatever the themes you want. Just do whatever you want. Do your passions, do something you like. Because the reason is, I think that's the part that, the mission officers would appreciate the most because it sounds genuine. Asking about the research that people done it just to have their names on it is different from asking the questions about the research that people were passionate about. So there's a very, very, very genuine moment for you to explain yourself. So yeah, do something you like. And I don't think you should worry about it. If you have a common theme like me because you're passionate about something, yeah, it's fine. But you shouldn't try to have a common theme. It's just trying to fit in the names so much more.
Mhm. Okay, that's good. All right. So, have you taken on a particularly impactful research project and something that you hold on to even as you pursue your graduate education or your researcher role? And what was your role in that undergraduate project and what were the key outcomes of that role?
Mm. So, I have done a lot of research, like co-authored, lead author, first author, corresponding author, second author, third author. All of research mattered to me, so it's kind of hard for me to kind of pull it out this one research, but like this matters to me because I have written a different first authors so much more. But the one thing I realized is having your own research and doing all the research and all that thing matters, but more importantly it's about the voice you bring out in the research. For example, one of my research is doing it with the MS3 from UC Irvine School of Medicine. And then I remember asking questions like, hey, do you want to implement these factors in your research? And then she take it in. And then she actually had to rewrite the whole manuscript that she took a 1 year to write because she wanted to implement my idea for it. I feel very thankful. For some people, they feel like, oh my gosh, I might ruin the thing or so much more, but it doesn't. It only made the research better because the reason is I'm the co-author, so I bring on my idea in the voice, and even if it takes a whole, year of work to be, to redone it, it's important for us to do a better research. I feel like research could be it could be very good if you're passionate, but it could be very like headache if you don't like it. So I think for me, I had a very specific the roles, first author, co-authors, corresponding authors, so much different authors, but still all the papers had a one common, and it's that you just have to bring in your own ideas, and that you shouldn't be scared of it, because even if you have to throw out the whole things, if you want the better papers, if you want the better passion, if you want the research to actually matter, but only you know it. It's not like others know it because you're telling the reviewer, but like this matters and they have to believe you. But you're the only one who knows it if it's actually matter or not. So if you want to be true to yourself, you would have to work, and bring out your voices. I was being true to myself, so I have to work more, but I'm happy for it. Yeah.
Most undergraduates will usually start as like a research assistant position and won't become an author until a little bit later in their undergraduate career. Would
Mhm.
you recommend, becoming passionate and involved into the research even as a research assistant?
I will be really honest. If you're doing a research to wanted to do a research, I think you should do it. But if you're
Mhm.
doing research to go to medical school, I think it's kind of like not good for you because the reason is, I also mentioned in the other questions, there are schools that specifically do not appreciate research as much as other schools.
Uh-huh.
For example, UCR School of Medicine is not a very big research school. It really isn't. They're more into primary care. They're more value more about the volunteering. They care more about the community service. And it's not bad. It's just the medical schools are different. Some medical school are focusing on the research, some focusing on the community care, some focusing on the maybe socioeconomic status of their patients. So if you're doing it to do like application fallout, I think it's not really good for you because that's when you become headache because you're now going out to the lab that you don't want to go into. But if you're doing the research you like, I think it will be a beautiful moment because I do my research that I like. So for me, I apologize, Briana, for removing the times like 3 to 4 times. I had to go to unexpected lab work and then meet people and meet my patient because my research involved teaching patients how to use their apps and how to record their hypertension and blood pressure and so much more. So I have to actually meet my patient, tell them how to do it. I have to
Mhm.
go there unexpectedly sometimes, actually many
Mhm.
times, not sometimes, many times, but I'm happy for it because I'm doing my own research. And that's something that I'm really interested in. So if
Mhm.
you're undergrad students who wants to do research, so you start from the research assistant, yeah, go for it. Why? Because that there are lab people and there are a lot of PI who prefer people would have done in the experience in the research assistants. And then even if you're a research assistant, you can still bring out your voices and give them the ideas, but like, do you think this is better than that? And if you're, if your PI like you, if your PI thinks that your ideas are worth it, that's you when you can actually step up to become the one of the authors instead of just one of the people who worked out the lab.
Mhm.
So that's something that I want to give it to, people who's thinking about the research.
That will definitely be good for me to keep in mind. So thank you. Okay, next question. Okay, so you do have a psychology background. You got a BA in psychology at UCR. So do you ever find yourself taking your psychology background into your medical training and research or clinical practice? And if so, how is this integration manifested in your work, either positively or negatively?
The one thing I tell people is physician is, let's say MD or DO, right? Not DVM or like, whatever the things we're doing. You practice medicine to humans. Of course, there are like, there are like pathologists or like laboratory medicine people who literally have an MD but still work in the lab. But
Mhm.
most of the people get their degrees to work with the people. Now, psychology is a study of human mind, and the understanding the human minds gives you a room to understand others better than any other majors. The one thing I can tell you for sure is psychology is an appreciation of the human mind. Uh, Studying psychology gives you this room to understand and appreciate others more. For example, many patients who are facing death, there are many patients who are facing the unexpected outcomes, do fear, and then they act in ways that are very unexpected. But that is also part of that, part of the outcomes that they have from the biological fluctuation that also affects the emotional beings. A lot of people think that that's the characteristic of some people, but it really isn't. Sometimes it's just because that they're sick physically that actually affect their moods and emotions to a point where people think it's a characteristic. But if you study psychology, that could give you a room to understand and also appreciate others, but like maybe they're just that way because they're sick. And that gives you appreciations and empathy for others. So that's the one thing that I really want to tell people because it's not only a psychology, but also, other humanities in general. Because you understanding the human minds are not really a physics or mathematic tools. Although, of course, there's a competition psychiatry and also there are like AIs, but still, understanding the human's mind is something more than just a science. That's when the room for you to love and appreciate your patients come from. So I feel like psychology gives you that understanding of maybe the things I'm studying for isn't really for only a biological reasons. You get to
Mhm.
have the room, and the one of the greatest privileges that physician can have is that you can actually leave your part of you to your patients. They remember who you are. I'm pretty sure you remember your physicians. Now I
I
remember
do.
my physicians, and then whatever your conversation you have, you remember it because those are the meaningful people that happen in your life. And, they're the one who helped out to become better. So if you learn psychology, I am pretty sure you can use that to understand others, have better empathy, and also have a better interaction with patients because you would have a better understanding of their minds, better appreciation of their minds, and also you would have more understandable hearts and minds as a physician. Yep.
That's a great answer. Thank you. That's very insightful.
Yeah. And also, the one thing I tell people about psychology is this is uh, very like a part that I'm really, I don't want to tell to other biochemistry majors, biology major, but biochemistry and biology isn't that hard. Like, in my opinion, isn't that hard. But for me, psychology, you study it to understand humans' mind, which has more random outcomes compared to the biochemistry. Uh,
Mhm.
I will be really honest. There is, of course, we have an average of these and that and statistics, but humans' mind is not as um, correlated as much as the cancer cells. And then one of the fun joke that I always tell my friends and all their lab mates is that, you know, the stem cells are better than your girlfriend's because at least they know what to eat. You know, because they at least they know what to eat and then become prosperous. Your cancer cell knows what to eat. Your girlfriend might not. You know, that's the joke I always say to people because humans' minds are very creative, very creative. So that's why I think psychology is gives you that room for appreciation, but at the same time, it's really fun to study psychology. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people in humanities and, psychology majors as per even need to hear that because they often feel like, there's this hierarchy where those STEM and no CNAS majors are, they know more about medicine, but that's not necessarily true.
Well, sorry to say this, but biochemistry majors um, think that they're the most hectic thing because they study biochemistry, but biochemistry is only worth it when you're studying internal medicine. And
Mhm.
there are a lot of other fields that requires more than medicine. Surgery doesn't really require a lot of, I mean, they do medicine, but surgery requires a lot less medicine compared to like a medicine people. So, it's very inappropriate to us to hierarchies and other things in that because that doesn't appreciate as much as we do. And at the same time, it's all about who's going to become the better physicians. And that is not only coming from the skills and science, it's also involving the questions of, how much conversation and how much, attitudes and empathy you would have to patients too. So,
Absolutely. Yes. All right. So we've talked about this a little bit, but what what more advantages do a psychology background bring to medicine, whether you're pursuing MD or DO? And how does this interdisciplinary knowledge of the human mind and body benefit people in their medical practice if they were to become a doctor?
mm. So it's like I mentioned, psychology is, basically understanding the human's mind. You would understand a lot of different things. And also, just like I said, there is this thing called biopsychosocial model. There are a lot of times that people come into clinic thinking that they have problems like so one of the patient I had in my clinic was coming in as one of the hypertension problems, but like, well, I can't sleep at night because I have a hypertension problems. We take care, we ask her to do what is it, the BP testing for like twice. And also we have done the 48 hours BP testing. Her BP was fine, but she just couldn't sleep a lot. And then when we asked her to elaborate more, she started to think about, her like family problems. We have this family problem so much more. And she said that gives me a headache to a point where I can't sleep. And I remember talking to my attendings, who is my PI too. I told him, hey, I feel like this might be something that we need to address in psychiatry. She said she has a headache from the family problems and she cannot sleep because of that. Maybe it's not hypertension, but it's more of an insomnia. And then I remember telling it to my attending, and my attending said, hey, you should look into, do you want to have a consultation with psychiatry? At first, she was like, no, I'm not that kind of sick and so much more. But we asked her, but like, hey, it's not that we think you're having any kind of like psychiatric problem, but it's more for you to kind of leverage more with the therapist.
Mm.
And we asked her to her therapist, she went there, and we actually found out that it was one of the she had a lot of stress, and that was a reason for her to not to sleep well in the night. And then she came to the nephrology clinic because it was a hypertension center clinic too. So some people come to other clinics like family medicine or like maybe some kind of like internal medicine clinic and so much more, thinking that they have this kind of problems. Like, I have a kidney problems or I have a blood pressure problems, and that's the reason I cannot digest or I cannot sleep well and so much more. Sometimes they actually have it because of the other reason, like social reason or psychological reason and so much more. But it's really hard for you to catch that. Why? Because if you're not actually having that opted out mind saying that maybe there's a problem with psycho and social model, you're basically not able to have the kind of mindset. For example, um, one of the paper that I read that is very outstanding to me up to this day is how much the Hispanic mothers have a lung problems. They have a lung problems as much people who smoke. And I remember looking at the paper like, why? It's because the Hispanic mothers cook the most out of all races, all of the other race. Hispanic mothers compared to other mothers in the other race and ethnicity, they cook the most because on average they have a higher volumes of family members. And also there are a lot of Hispanic mothers who makes food as a living. So you have to stand up more and you have to stand in front of the heat more. And for that reason, you smell and also you smell smoke at the same time you breathe in the heat. So you have a lung problem as much as people who smoke the cigarettes. And I remember reading the paper and thinking to myself, like, oh shoot, I didn't think about that because that's a social reason. Is it really hard for you to understand why mothers who never smoke have a lung problems without realizing that they have cooking for life and also they have a high family volumes of, people to feed and so much more. And also, it's like one of the things I realize is there are a lot of patients who come into clinic that couldn't come into the right clinic but come to the wrong clinic, not because they were, not knowing how to do it, not knowing how to come to the right clinic. It's because they were afraid to go to the right clinic. They're afraid to go to psychiatry. They're afraid to go to this and that. But understanding that these kind of perspective and the understanding that maybe that these things that you're feeling it is not only coming from your biological reason, it can be a social reason, it can be a psychological reason. But that parts to have a bio and psychosocial model is almost never talked about it in the biochemistry. If you go into biochemistry, they never mention about possibility of, having the social structure and the social economic status that allows you to have this kind of problem and so much more. It's like they never go through. It's like there's a depression in Hispanic males. Why? Because they have a pressure to serve their children's and family, and they have a fear of deported to the back to wherever they came from. All those things, like those things are hard to read, and also those things are hard to address. But those things and those kind of minds are very hard to have it unless you study psychology or any of the other fields in science.
Mhm.
Not a lot of people read about those things. Not a lot of
Yeah.
people learn about those things either. And that was actually one of the reason the chemistry co-researcher had to fix her manuscript because I asked her saying that maybe the socioeconomic status and also the including the factors of if the Hispanic patients came in or not could have been influenced by data. So she had to fix her manuscript because of that. But I came from that idea because of knowing that there might be other reasons. So that's something that I really wanted to tell everyone because having the psychology is not the only the fact that you can have, Hispanic, understanding other races so much more. It's also the way for you to understand that humans' mind work in a very unique ways. Just like you said, you could have major neuroscience. Yes, you could have major neuroscience, but there's more than just the neurons. Why do you have depression? We still do not understand fully. Some people say, oh, we have depression because of lack of this neurotransmitter. We have depression because so some people have depression because of their friends. Some
Mhm.
people have depression because of the pressure from the school. Some people have depression because of biological reason. They didn't eat this and that. Some people have depression because it's just genetics. There are a lot of different reasons for that. But if you only have say biochemistry, it's easier. I'm not saying that you only need to do that, but it's easier for you to say that it's only because of genetics reason. And then, if you have studied biochemistry, you might be like, oh, it's because of your transmitter. But there are other reasons. It could be school, it could be your family members, it could be your what is it, peers and so much more. So psychology gives their room of having that different mindset and asking questions like, what to do. And also, is it really this and that? Because humans are more than just animals. And that's the reason we actually have a lab that have questions like, does what happened in the monkeys would actually happen to us? Does it work in the, animals will work into us? There was a reason there was a whole phase of trying out different clinical trial to coming up to humans. So yeah, psychology is very, very beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And would you say that by not taking advantage of the biopsychosocial model in medicine, there's this flaw in the American healthcare system where physicians are not providing culturally competent care, especially in the field of psychiatry?
Mm. So the reason I kind of hesitate about this question is because I did not study about public health. I did not have any degree in public health. So it's very hard for me to say whatever I say because whatever I see was just from the UC Irvine. It's a
Yeah.
very limited view. But one thing I can probably say is that it really involves a lot more than just, studying this and that. It can be, money, it can be, school's name, it can be this and that. But one thing that I heard from many attendings is that a lot of times they regret not studying or not taking any of the philosophy class or humanities class because there are a lot of times they don't know how to act when the patients are, asking the questions like, am I gonna die? You know, am I gonna leave before my parents? Those questions are asked to physicians because there are a lot of questions given to physicians, and then what do they have to say? In the medicine, they will have to say, yeah, you're dying within like 2 months. But also, there's a better way to say that, right? Like, how would this person react? How would this person behave? How would that make this sound better? There are actually a class in medical school that I heard that you practice how to like say those things in a better way. But I still do think that it's very important for people to, know the biological, sociological, psychological factors because a lot of time it gets really science in the clinic and then it makes you like not it makes you forget about those things because you forget to ask about one thing because I remember when I was volunteering in RCH one of the one of the workers came to the clinic and then I remember residents were asking you had this literally a hole in your hand and you came like 2 days later, why did you done that? And the guy says because he was working. And then the resident was looking at like, you could just take a break or something. And they are speaking Spanish, so we have to bring the interpreter. And then they said, oh, it's because if they do not go out to work, they cannot feed their families, and then they cannot take a break because our boss changes every day. And then that's when I realized that the people who come out to the work in a Walmart or like any of the like Home Depot places, those people have a different boss every day, and then they get to pay daily. And that's how they make their livings for it, so they cannot take a break.
Mhm.
That requires a whole sessions of asking questions and why didn't you come within the times you just got the, holes in your head. That involves more than just medicine. That involves the humanities. That involves appreciation of asking why. If a resident didn't ask that question, that patient just becomes a patient who is stupid, who didn't take himself, who taking care of himself immediately. They might
Mhm.
be like, this patient's so stupid, bro. No, it's not. It's just the patient couldn't take a break as much as you did, right? But those things are not only the factor of medicine that required to have appreciation of humankind. And I feel like those things are only being studied in the humanities because it involves you to care about others. It involves you to have love for others. I'm not saying that biochemistry do not make you appreciate others. I mean, you do appreciate it, but there's a different ways of appreciating. Looking at the human's body and being fascinated by it is different from looking at the humans and thinking to yourself, like, maybe I can do something for this person. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So I'm an incoming freshman, and I've met a lot of incoming freshmen psychology majors who are incredibly nervous about taking this pre-med journey and this path to medicine. And they're already thinking, should I switch to pre-health instead of pre-med or pre-law? So what advice would you offer to a freshman psychology major who is contemplating this path about between research and medicine or a path of research and medicine?
So one thing I tell people in freshman year is You shouldn't worry about research in freshman year. The reason is I feel like school is already kind of hard. I feel like freshman year, I feel like freshman year, if you're studying hard, that's when you study organ. I don't think you study organic chemistry freshman year. I'll be really honest. I feel like you study organic chemistry as soon as you're like sophomore year or junior year, depends on your schedule. But I think school is already kind of hectic, so it's already good enough for you to study all the time. And at the same time, medical schools, just like I said, there are a lot of different medical schools. UCL School of Medicine value more of a community service and so much more compared to research. One of my students got into UCL School of Medicine without having any of the research. And then
Oh,
she
wow.
has a lot of community medicine, doing a lot of volunteering and so much more. So if you're doing it for medical school, I don't think it's good because you probably hate it at the same time it takes away your lifetime. But uh so it's like I said, focus on studying well, getting the good GPA. Because the reason is it's really hard to get the good GPA in the first place, but if you get it, every year it gets solid. It's like a buffer range. It's
Mhm.
like if you make a one mistake, if you make a one mistake in freshman year, like they fluctuate a lot.
Yeah.
But if you make a mistake in your junior year, it's better than having it in freshman year if you have good grades up to that point because all of your good grades become solid and the percentage of your one grade compared to your freshman year is way lesser. So this becomes a buffer.
Mhm.
So I think you should spend most of your time doing research. I mean, doing the studying, because doing the research in freshman year isn't that good. Like, unless you're like a smart, unless you're like a Nobel Prize winning people, I don't think you bring out the pretty meaningful data in your lab. And at the same time, I don't think your PI expects you to bring in this, similar, meaningful data as much as they did. Because freshman year, if you go into lab, they probably ask you to just wash in some equipment and then do a lot of the labors, like putting the data and so much more. They don't ask you to do actual research. You're more of a like an assistant rather than researcher. But the reason so much people are working in the lab is because a lot of these biochemistry lab need people to do their work. And then if you apply to medical school and they ask you questions like, what did you do in the lab? You can tell what kind of techniques you have done. You're like, oh, I done a Western blot. I done this and that. I know how to do the information system, but they ask you, so what kind of thesis did you write? What kind of manuscript? What part of manuscript did you write? Well, like,
Mhm.
I didn't write manuscript. Then that's the problem because you didn't do research. You were like assist the research for this, first author and second author to think about their thing and the corresponding authors to put in their thing. You just have been working to provide them the things. So freshman year, research isn't that strong. But even if you know that, but you still work in the lab, if you still want to work in the lab, definitely. But if you just doing it for medical school, I don't think it's good. Why? Because a freshman year is already hard. You have
Yeah.
to study. Now your studying is different. It's way different from high school. You have to actually spend time to study. You actually have to think about, how do I get this grade or so much more. So I don't think you have a time to do research. Even if you have time to do research, I feel like you should kind of spend time with your friends so that you can like, release your stress and then do better on the next time so much more.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I was a research assistant and I was a senior in high school, so I was just doing, the simple task. I wasn't really contributing to the manuscript or the thesis, so I can definitely agree that when it's over, after freshman year, you're able to really contribute and become an author and go to conferences and get more of that meaningful experience.
Yeah, and also it's not really fun if you're not the author. If it's not your paper, because think about it, it's like
Mhm.
if you do some others' work, it's not really fun. Because if you're not bringing your own idea, it's not really fun papers to write. So I feel like that's something that people should consider because even if the you know even if the time comes for you to think like I want to do my own research, if you do not have any kind of experience in lab, it will be hard for you to enter the lab in the first place. So it might be a good idea for you to, spend time doing assisting, even if you cannot bring your own idea for the later times when you actually want to bring in your own ideas. So that's something that people can think about. But for freshman year, I don't think you should do research. I think you should kind of like chill out and then study it because it's already hard for you to take a 4.0 in freshman year. Yep.
Okay, so you did your BA at UCR. So are there specific courses, professional or academic resources, or student groups and clubs at UCR that you would recommend to those who are pursuing a similar career trajectory?
So Psych 115, they call it drugs and behavior. It's a psychopharmacology class. It's actually taught by a psychopharmacologist. It's really fun. It's about, like what kind of treatments you do, what kind of medication you will give out to people with depression and so much more. So it's a very like a medical school type of lecture. You learn a lot about medication. You learn a lot about, you know, like ibuprofen and so much more. So it's very fun. It's very fun to study. I think that's a really good for people who wants to go into psychiatry. And additionally, I have to give it to OKUCR, OKUCR is literally, we actually don't choose members. So if you come in and become a member, so you become a members. Of course, if you want to become one of the board members, you have to apply for it. But as long as you, get the resources and so much more, we provide it for you. We give you, books, tutorship, and we give you mentorship and so much more. We give you everything. And then at the same time, LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is the most beautiful tool you can have in your life. Briana, reached out to me through LinkedIn, and two of my research that I am the first author for is literally done by the two PI I met on the LinkedIn, and two of them were in Korea, and I met them in person through the LinkedIn, and I was doing my research there and came back to continue the research. So it's very beautiful for you to do LinkedIn and then make it as professional as possible because I feel like LinkedIn is a way for you to connect with others who are very smart and individuals. At the same time, that's when you can literally meet most amazing opportunities. Maybe you can shout at people there. Maybe you can, don't afraid to get connected to, all those like I even got connected to the dean of UC School of Medicine to my LinkedIn because he was like, "Oh, you're one of the researchers here." I was like, "Ah, yeah." And then I'm pretty sure when I apply to their MD PhD, I will probably mention about that because he's one of the dean. So
Yeah.
I think it's good for you to kind of like or make your LinkedIn as professional as possible
Yeah.
and connected to people. I mean, if he reads my review my application, he might have a better feeling for me compared to others, right? So
Right.
make your LinkedIn professional as possible, reach out to people. For studying, Anki cards. I think Anki is the greatest gift that the Lord allowed us to have. It's the greatest gift. I can never stress this enough. It's the greatest gift of all time. Anki, you have to learn how to use it. Why?
Okay.
Because you have to use it in medical school anyway.
Yeah.
All over step one, step two, step three, everything gonna be in your Anki. Why? You can never take the notes with your hands. There are some people who take notes with hands in medical school. They are the most enthusiastic and strong people. Their arms are stronger than the tree. Because you cannot take notes over like 2,000 PPTs. Because biology, I don't know if you're gonna take the same professor as me. I'm pretty sure biology still have a very biology, molecular biology has like 2,000 like slides for one lecture. And then that's very similar to medical school because medical school microbiology is like 4,000 PPT and so much more. There are a lot of things to study. So if you take notes with your hands, I feel like your hands gonna break before you finish studying. So Anki is the best way for you to study.
Okay.
Anki. Yeah. Is there more question?
No, I'm definitely gonna use Anki now. But yeah, I do love LinkedIn. Is there any way that you feel like people should set up their LinkedIn profile to get more connections or to make a better impression to those who they do decide to connect with?
One of the things I do is I make sure to, so if I see any smart people, if I see any like outstanding people outstanding LinkedIn, I take a screenshot of it and I'll see you later. And then by the times that I go, get to home, I look through their LinkedIn and I look the way they explain themselves.
Mhm.
Their their projects, their careers, education, and so much more. I look at the way they explain themselves, and then I mimic that. I literally benchmark that, and I make my LinkedIn better every time. It's like I always change it. The way I describe myself changes every day.
Mhm.
And then the way I, describe my education, describe my project has to change every day because it's really good for you to, mimic the people who have a very outstanding LinkedIn. It's the same as your resume. It's like, you have to follow and you have to mimic the people who have a good resume so you can actually provide those, highlighting moments of your career. Even if you do a same experience with others, everyone describes it differently. Even if you eat the same food, everyone describes the flavor differently.
Mhm.
It's only the matter of how you describe it. Same as your education, same as your projects and so much more. I can just say I was the CEO of a star company. Or I can say as a CEO, I provided and delegated different work types to my managers and led the talented individuals. In addition to learning how to manage the company with the pressure of succeeding in the 2 months and so much more, I could say that. So mimic the people who have a good LinkedIn and make it better. And also don't afraid to connect with the people that you want them to see your whole profile.
Yeah. Okay. So I know we talked about this earlier, but how crucial is it for students to engage in research early in their academic careers if they're interested in a combined focus of psychology and medicine? For example, I feel like they want to pursue an MD and PhD after their bachelor's degree, do you think they should start research as soon as possible?
Um, For MD, just like I said, there are different medical schools for different perspective. Some medical school appreciate volunteering more than the research. Some medical school do appreciate research more than the volunteering so much more. So it's a matter of which medical school you're applying to. But the one thing I want to say for sure is if you're applying for MD-PhD programs, it's very important for you to have an independent thinking. And this
Mhm.
is not coming from me. This is something that I heard from the actual open house for the UAB MD-PhD program and also the other, MD-PhD candidates. I mean, and also the MD-PhD admission officer. It's kind of interesting because all the MD-PhD admission officer are MD-PhD who actually graduate from their own program. So they become their own admission officer after graduating from their own program. And then I remember meeting the UC Davis NDPC program director who was a psychiatrist, and he shared to me saying that, independent thinking, do your own research. Because the reason is, so in MD-PhD, um, I don't know how to say this nicely. I really don't. Research has a trend, just like everything. So every 20 years, every 10 years, the research trends change. For now, it's like a DNA, RNA, and also like is there either four of either every NDPC candidate, almost all of them are doing four of these: cancer cells, neurodegenerative, DNA, RNA, or or stem cell. The four is like the most main thing, main focus, and then something that has been done by a lot of the NDPC people is because that's the trend. And then if you think about it, I'm not talking down on those people. No, but cancer research has a lot of rooms to write about. Um, Stem cell does too. So does
Yeah.
neurodegenerative and RNA. This is a benefit of a one of the research because you can write a lot of different perspective with saying it like this could work. If not, we still have edited data. So those kind of research involves a lot of time, but at the same time gives you a lot of room for providing the other perspective rather than, this is right and this is wrong. But those things are probably done in wet lab. Those are very wet lab type of, Western blast type of lab. For me, I did clinical translational science. It's
Mhm.
more about meet people in clinic, tell people how to use their apps, you know, tell people to do the survey and so much more to find the different vectors so that we can write a paper where other physicians who are in the other country or the other side of the world could read our paper and implement it in their clinic.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of this stigma about the clinical science. We're like, hey, clinical science ain't really a science. Wet lab is the best. But the trends change. 20 years ago, clinical science was the main point of it in the PhD because they saying they were like, oh, physician scientists, you have to do science that is related to the physicians. But now it's more of like biologist kind of work where people do these kind of biologist wet lab and saying that this is the most important thing about the PhD. But when I asked the admission officer questions like, should I move it to wet lab instead of clinical science, translation of clinical science, he said, it's not the matter of which research you're doing. It's the matter of independent thinking. It's a matter of what kind of things you're bringing, the ideas I'm bringing in. I bring in the ideas I want. But if I do the wet lab, I will probably have to do something that my co-authors ask me to do it because I don't like wet lab.
Yeah.
I don't like coming into the lab with like all this like white coat and so much more to drop the pipettes and so much more. I don't like that. I like computers. I like meeting my patients. I like wearing scrubs more than white coat because I get to see my patients and tell them what to do.
Yeah.
But I was afraid of, certain admission officers might have a preference of a wet lab compared to the, clinical science, but they said it's not. It's only the matter of if you're able to become a scientist, to have your own independent thinking, do your own research. And for that perspective, I'm doing my own research, multiple of them. So it's fine. And then that's the beautiful part about the translational science. Clinical science and translational science doesn't involve wet lab, so you can do multiple at once. As long as you have good corresponding authors, as long as you have a good co-authors, you can do multiple research. That was literally the bell for me to write out the grants because I have to submit the grants for the clinical translated science. But the cool part is I do like 5 different research right now,
Wow.
but it doesn't involve me a lot of times. Why?
Mhm.
Because it's more of a paperwork, more of a data work, and more of a information system work. And then I can ask other undergraduate students who are in my lab to go out to patients and meet them and teach them how to do it.
Mhm.
And that's the beautiful part is more systemized and more research I can do. And we pull out the data that can be used in the clinic right away.
Mhm.
Because I brought the research, I brought the one of the things I got, one of my abstract got submitted and then to the hypertension, American Heart Association. And it was about the Hispanic population, non-Hispanic population, and the hypertension clinic outcomes after and before the COVID. And those results that I'm bringing in can be used by other physicians in the clinic right away
Yeah.
compared to the other wet lab things. Because, of course, having the GLP-1 system showing the better outcomes in the GLP-2 is a very important thing, but it's really hard to use it within the clinic right now. Not compare it as much as I do with the patients. So that's the beautiful part. Every lab has a pros and cons.
Mhm.
Am I not able to do a lot more like, those like Nobel Prize medicine type of, work, but I still get to do a lot of research that involves and helping my patient. And for me, that's more satisfying. Why? Because I can see the physician using the papers I write at the same time because my PI is using the paper the other MD PhD who have done the research in clinical science has done. So it's like clinical science is like it's like magazine. This thing is hot. We found this result. Try in your clinic. And then we use it. So that's the beautiful part for me. But others might appreciate biological cancer cell. Others might appreciate neurodegenerative, medication making process. Everyone has a different passion. But the most important part is having your own independent thinking and doing your own research to become an MD PhD. So it's not about the psychology major. If I was choosing philosophy major, it would be still fine. The only reason I chose psychology major is because I wanted to go into psychiatry.
Mhm.
And my research actually do involve psychiatry too.
Yeah.
We see this emotional well-beings of people before and after transplant to surgery and so much more. So if you want to do your own research, and then if you want to do research in psychology, sure, but it's not really a matter of major. It's more about what you like and what kind of passion you can bring into that. But if you want to become an PhD, I think it's a good idea for you to work in the lab in undergrad, even if for assistants, because you need to have a chance to go into lab as a researcher. But I think it's hard for you to become a researcher if you're not. having the experience of working as an assistant and so much more.
So do you think, how would you balance freshman year of working as a research assistant and still establishing that GPA?
For me, I think it's good for you to kind of like, so there was a research portal in UCR. They're literally sending out this like, hey, we are looking for researchers. We're looking for this and that. You can maybe, submit your application and talk to the PI and then set up your times, and then you can balance it out. Maybe every once a week you go out to the lab and work, or every weekend you go out to the work, or so much more. I feel like the most important part is understanding your own time commitment. For some people, spend more time in lab. For some people, spend more time in, in home. Some people will spend time with friends. I don't know what kind of, priorities you have, but the most important part is understanding your own priorities and implementing in your own, conversation with your PI where you're going to work and so much more.
Okay. So what aspects of your undergraduate education do you find yourself missing or appreciating or thinking about in comparison to, your job as a researcher or while applying to med school or any type of graduate education?
Your natural science matter. There's this meme that I saw in the Twitter back in the day. One of the residents tweeted saying that today is my second day of my residency, and I'm proud to say that I have never used organic chemistry up to this point. I think it makes sense because you don't do if you, but you need to know in order for you to understand medicine, just like the textbook that I saw you, all the names and all the things are already made with the idea of saying that you must understand this from organic chemistry.
Mhm.
GLP-1 is a name from biochemistry. Glutamate is a name from organic chemistry and so much more. Those things matter. Like physics matter too. Some people think physics doesn't matter at all. People will be like, I'm not going to engineering. Why does physics matter? Physics matter because your body is the matter. And for example, when patient gets old, their vessels get stiff and their blood pressure goes up because your blood pressure, I mean your vessels, it moves little compared to when you were young, but when you're old, it doesn't move at all as much as you did when you were young. It doesn't like it contradicts as much as you did. So having that limited amount of space with the same amount of volumes of blood actually leads to blood pressure. So when you're getting old, it's very common for you to have a hypertension.
Mhm.
But those things are actually involves you to do with physics. But they didn't ask you to study that. They already assume that you understand it from undergraduate programs. And also when you're doing research, physics and organic chemistry and natural science is very important. Why? Because research is already complementing all those things, understanding that you already know what to do.
Mhm.
So it's a very important for you to study your things, not only for you to take an MCAT, but it's for you to study to actually do better in medicine and at the same time to understand medicine better. Because if you do not pay attention in those classes, it's not going to hurt your MCAT. I mean, it can be, but it hurt more than that. You have a hard time understanding the medicine. You would have a hard time understanding the bigger pictures. You learn organic chemistry to study biochemistry, and you study biochemistry to study internal medicine.
Mhm.
If you do not study internal medicine, you will have a hard time understanding the medicine at all. So those are something that I really wanted to point out to everyone. All of your medical science, all of your medical, whatever the ideas you're going to have are built by the ideas you learn in undergraduate. So if you do not pay attention to those classes, you will probably suffer a lot. And your patient will suffer even more. So yeah.
Especially organic chemistry gets an terrible like rep. Like everyone I've met has said it's like the worst class they've taken in their undergraduate career. How do you overcome that like intimidating feeling like those classes have?
So mm, so organic chemistry is actually
Yeah.
hard. So I can never for that part I have to admit it's pretty hard. Chemistry is pretty hard.
Yeah.
I
I
went to
bet.
Korea and then met other people. I went to Seoul. I actually visited three different medical schools in Korea. Seoul
Mhm.
National University, Yonsei College of Medicine, and then Korean University College of Medicine. All three are like a Harvard, Yale, and like a like Dartmouth kind of medical schools in state. I'm in Korea, and then my friends who went to medical school in Korea told me that organic chemistry is sucking ass, and they got F in organic chemistry, so they have to restart everything again. I was like, oh shit. I
Yeah.
thought I thought it was only the state's thing, but it
Mhm.
was everyone's thing. And I met one of the engineering people from SNU. He said, don't you think organic chemistry is so like random? And I was like, oh wow. It wasn't only the medicine people, it was actually everyone who studied organic chemistry. So organic chemistry is kind of hard. And
Yeah.
then I feel like organic chemistry is very hard because organic chemistry has a lot of randomness into it. For example, when I was studying I forgot, it was like the 3 to 2 edition, or it was a 4 to 5 edition. I don't know the names of it. Don't get me wrong. I don't recall it very specifically, but I remember they still couldn't find a reason why this addition happens for two different molecules. But they were still teaching me and everyone with the theory saying that this might be the most, hypothetical theory.
Yeah.
And then I heard that they change up their theory every 2 to 4 years, but they had to stick with one because they have to make people to take MCAT. So
Yeah.
on the MCAT, they teach you in a book, they're like, this is the most making sense theory to others, but we still don't know, but we choose to use this as an MCAT.
Yeah.
So organic chemistry has a lot of randomness. At
Mhm.
the same time, organic chemistry has a lot of it's not science. I don't know if it's right for us to call it science. It's not very science. This is very different from physics and mathematics. Because I'm
Yeah.
really good at physics and math. And as a person who's good at physics and math, I struggled a lot in organic chemistry because organic chemistry involves a lot of drawing, involves a lot of thinking, involves a lot of randomness. So if you want to do better in organic chemistry, I have nothing to say but just to study as much as you did. I think it depends on people. Some people get it, some people don't. The same as other fields, but organic chemistry, just study hard. Just stick to it. You got it. You got it, girl.
Thank
And even if you don't, you should for medical school.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, you should definitely get it.
Yeah. All right. So I'm sure you met so many different mentors and peers throughout your undergraduate career. So what was a piece of advice that you've got about research or during your research that significantly altered your approach or thinking? And how did this feedback impact your subsequent work in medicine research?
I met one patient who, she was like 28. She only had like 2 months left to, 2 months left to, live a life. And I remember seeing my attendings were like, hey, um, well, she has a limited life. But I remember my attending looked at me in my eyes and said, you and I have a limited life too, bro.
Mhm.
Limited life too. It's not like your patients are the only ones dying. You just die more, you just die after her. It's just not like she's the only one she's dying. You have to die. I have to die. We never know which one goes to go first. But that just stays with me every time because it's not only stay within the clinic, but also just makes me think a lot about my life and life in general. Actually, tomorrow I have to go to Riverside to do free clinic because I get to do a free clinic for the people who don't have an insurance. But for me, I do the free clinic because I realized that I don't know when I'm gonna die. It's kind of sad, but it's not sad. It's not really sad. I don't know when I'm gonna die. I don't know how I'm gonna die. I never know. But I want to live the best of my life every moment. But that's the reason I do research. That's the reason I do volunteering. That's the reason I do this and that because I get to see my patients, you know, more than I expected to. I love seeing my patients in clinic. I love seeing my clinical. I actually, maybe this is the reason I like clinical research. I love clinical research because I get to talk to my patients and I get to meet them.
Yeah.
And then I get to learn from them. Every patients I met are special to me. They're like a family to me. and they teach me a lot, not as a human being at all, but as a physician, as a man, as a what kind of person I should be. And then for me, that short realization, I have to die too. It's a way for me to have a motivation to understand and resonate with my patients. Patient has to die, I have to die. We have a common things in place. But that also becomes a passion for me to do better in my research, better in my volunteering, and so much more. It's because for me, patient is the most important thing in my life. I think patient is the most important thing in my life. And then I want to spend every moment not worrying about, oh, I could have done more for my patients. So that's the reason I do my best, do the research to benefit my patients, in addition to volunteering for my patients who do not have an insurance. So
Mhm.
that's just something that makes me, go on and more to push more that understanding of that I'm gonna die too. Yeah.
No, I seriously do applaud you, and we do need people like you in medicine and in medicine research. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for asking that question. I'm pretty sure you're like that too.
I try, yeah. All right. So when it comes to failures and setbacks, they're inevitable. They're going to happen. So what type of failure setback in your research process or even in undergrad taught you a valuable lesson or new insight? And so how did this experience shape your problem solving approach in research or clinical settings?
So I don't have any failures in my research. I say that because I truly believe even there was a moment for me to kind of step back. I use it as a way for me to kind of maybe I can try on other ways. Because there was a one time one of the systems we were using are not working.
Yeah.
But that challenged me to code because I never coded before. And I remember asking my computer science people, but like, can you help me and teach me how to do code? And they taught me how to code. And then I remember coding the actual system for myself instead of using the older code system, and we made it to work. And that actually forced me to code. And then that made me how to code. Because I never knew how to code, but because of that experience, now I can code. So
Mhm.
I think every things happen for a reason. And then for me, that's why I don't like call it failures. Is I don't even want to call it setbacks. It's a teaching moment. If you have an obstacles in front of you, if you think that is an obstacle, it will be an obstacle. But if you think that that's a stair, then you can step into next level. You can see higher things. When you're in undergrad, you get a lot of stress, a lot.
Mhm.
Um, you just have to find a way for you to fight that.
Yeah.
It's lonely. It really gets lonely because you have to stay in your dorm studying while everyone is having fun. But that's the part of you that you have to give up to give it to your patients. I feel like every moment that you give up for yourself are the moments that you can give it to your patients. So that's something that you have to kind of understand. And related to that, any kind of setbacks you have to ask yourself a question. If I give up on this, how can I not give up on my patients? You have to fight over it, man. For patient in the clinic, they have nothing but you.
Yeah.
If you give up, then it's over for them. So it's like the oncologist who asks the patient, "Do you want to try it again?" And when the patient asks him, "Do you think I should try it again? If you were me, would you try it again?" He'd say, "Yeah, I would try it again. I'm too young to die. If I was you." He fought for him. He stand for him. He didn't use that moment to be like, I want to give you the choice. He took his chance and then he again went on for it. If the chemotherapy didn't work that time, he would have probably like felt pretty bad because you made him even more painful. Chemotherapy hurts. That's
Yeah.
the reason the physician had to ask him. Chemotherapy hurts like very bad, but it worked. And then that requires very much of a gut for physician to like say it, but he done it. Um, all those obstacles you're seeing right now are stairs. You can step it in to become the next level. And I feel like that's the most important part for you to have in your perspective because none of my research, none of the setbacks or failures, it was a way for me to grow better. Yep.
I love that perspective really. And as someone who's been on the side of a patient and I've been in a vulnerable position where all I had to look up to was what my doctor was telling me, it's a painful experience. So it absolutely is worth the sacrifice to go through undergrad and be able to be the doctor that you may have needed or will need in the future.
Yeah. And also add on to that, is that's how you practice. Believing your guts, become stronger. And the nights you're spending, you spend countless nights. You spend countless morning not waking up because you already woke up from the night before. And you have to spend those nights literally not sleeping as much more, but it's worth it. Not because you can get the good grades, not only because of that, but also because that you practice, you really practice how to not give up. Physician isn't the one who saves everyone, but physician is the one who doesn't give up on anyone. I think that's the one quote that I always live by. Physician is the one who doesn't give up on anything. So I think it's good for you to not to say anything as a failure, but rather say, no, I'm not going to give up. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's good. It's a shift in perspective that I feel like will be very beneficial for people.
Yep.
Right. So many pre-medical students are advised to maintain their passion for medicine rather than solely focusing on just the goal of I need to get into med school, I need to get into medical school. So what strategies would you suggest for students to really nurture their genuine interest in medicine and the genuine reason why they want to go into medical school while also demanding this course load and demanding, all these demanding things. I'll study for MCAT, volunteer research, how would you balance that?
I want to ask you this question to you. What does a patient mean to you?
It's a good question. What does a patient mean to me? A patient, I feel like I would see as someone who is going to you for your expertise and advice and also comfort. Again, I have been on the side of the patient.
Mm.
So, and it's a vulnerable place to be. So, you need to be able to accommodate to them and see what they're going through and try to do the best that you can to help them.
That's good. That's very good. The reason I asked the question is because that all of the question and all of the perspectives we're having in the this pre-medical and all the undergraduate systems and so much more is we want to do this and that, but also why are we doing this?
Mhm.
What's the main point of it? There is a physician. There you have to know there might be a patient without a physician, but there are never a physician without the patient. So asking the question of what does a patient mean to me is a way for me to, is for a way for people to remember what am I doing this for? And you have to understand why am I doing this for? It's different for everyone. The meaning of patient is different for some people as a client, for some people as a friend, for some people as a family, for some people as a mentor, so for some people as brothers and sisters. I'll never know what kind of mean to patient, but I feel like it's a good way for people to remember that what does a patient mean to me is a way to remind themselves that they're doing this for. Because it's easy for people to forget or not even think about it in the first place. But that practice is very necessary because you need to have the kind of mindset of asking what does my patient will want when you're in clinic because not everyone is coming from the same background. For some people, the medication cost is different. So for some people, it's think it's cheap. For some people, think it's very expensive. For some people, they can never offer it in the first place.
Mhm.
You have to ask the questions of how whatever I see things, how can it affect the people matters a lot. So for you and also for other, for me myself, to genuinely interest in medicine and medicine that interest and keep demanding in the extra courses is to question oneself every day. What does a patient mean to me? Is it a client? Is it someone I have to take care of? For me, patient was used to become patient used to mean someone that I have to take care of. But throughout the times of my research and throughout the times of my volunteering, I realized it's way different. In beginning, I thought I was helping the patients. But at the end, I was realizing that no, it's not that I'm helping these patients. I mean, I am, but it's more than that. It's actually that I could only have lived because of these people. I get to graduate, I get to study this and that. I would have probably give up before graduating to study medicine if it wasn't these people. I can only have done something because of the people that I wanted to take care of. Have you ever had talked to with your mother? Sometimes your mother will say things like, there are a lot of things that I could only have done after becoming mother. There are a lot of things that I could only have done becoming a father. It's like that. For some people, they could never have done something unless they become the parents for themselves. If they were not parents, they would have lived a different life. But after becoming the parents, they have a responsibility. They fight for it. They become better. They become greater versions of themselves because they have to take care of their children. And it's like that. I feel like for me, I became the best version of myself because of the patience. At first, I thought I was helping them, but I realized those are the only reasons that I could only have become who I am today. Now, I would have studied this much if it's not the patients I'm at in the clinic. But those people I'm at in the clinic were the reason that I studied this much and then study even more and also to a point where I, you know. So to me and to anyone, patient means different, but for them to remind themselves about the question is very necessary for you to keep your interest in medicine.
And that is something I will be keeping with me throughout my undergraduate career. So thank you.
No problem, thanks.
All right. So we've talked about many deep ones. So there's so much stress being pre-med and going on this route. So what hobbies or leisure activities did you do to help manage stress and prevent burnout?
Friends matter. I feel like friends is very important. Uh, for me, it's the same thing. Going out to lunch with my friends, talk with them, laugh about it. I think it's very beautiful because having the good friends is very important in the career. They're your support system. There are a lot of times that I didn't give up things because of my friends. My friends were like, you could done it. You could, you got this. And there are a lot of friends who encourage me to do the things that I never thought I could done it. So I feel like friends is very important. Having the good friends matter in college. So find the friends and find the people that you want to work with is very important. And for me, I manage my stress by, talking my feelings to my friends and then ask them for support systems and then supporting each other for that reason. So that's a really way for me to, fight this rough road, I guess.
Yeah. How would you go about picking friends, if you don't mind me asking? Like, where would you find them? What was your secret, or how would you find people who were truly supportive for you? Because, it's definitely hard, especially when you're balancing everything in college. You kind of forget how to socialize.
Mm. So all of my friends are from high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All of my friends are from high school. One in Johns Hopkins School of Medicine, one in Yale, one in NYU Economics.
Mhm.
The other one's like in Brown School of Medicine. So we actually came from the same team in Sunny Hills High School. I went to Sunny Hills High School,
Mhm.
and it was a very academically rigorous high school. And all of my friends were coming from like the same organization, the clubs, who were passionate. I was the most like naive, not studying person from there. And then I always joke around saying that if I study as much as you guys, I could have gone to Yale Medical School, but I didn't study enough. So I got into UCR. I mean, this is a joke, I choose UCR because it's a great school and they pay me for ride. But my friends are from high school, but also have a really good friends from college too. And it's kind of funny. I actually met my friends by randomly asking, can I sit here in a coffee bean? Because I thought that was nice. It was in my freshman year. And I asked him, can I sit here? And I'll say, so who are you? And then we start talking and we shared Instagram and then we became friends. And all of my friends in college met like that and they became the most supportive system. they were all different majors, finance major. One of them was a economics major, physics major, and so much more. But we had a pretty good, yeah. I still talk to them. I still hang out with them.
Mhm,
But I feel like, have you ever, you know, in research, you know how the best data is a random data?
mhm.
You know that random data is the best data?
Yeah,
Same with friends. Random people are the best friends.
I love that.
Try out your shot. And if you meet with the random people and you like it, then it's fine. I don't think you have to like, I don't think you have to have some strategies to pick out people. I feel
Yeah,
like that kind of limits you to meet the people that has the potentials.
yeah.
'Cause I feel like there are all beautiful parts about different majors. You know, I get to see the different perspectives too. So, yep.
Mhm. What lesser known resources at UCR do you think pre-medical or pre-health students should utilize to enhance, academic or professional development? I know a lot of people talk about the career center, but what are other ways at UCR where you think would be most effective
Then
to yourself?
I can, if I have to speak one thing before I die, is make your LinkedIn as professional as possible. Because the
Yeah.
reason is LinkedIn, I might have start another research with one from Rice University,
Mhm.
because I just shoot them an email. Be like, hey, I think your work is crazy and good. Those one email is good enough for you to start research with the other people in the other institutions.
Mhm.
Then your LinkedIn, if you make it professional, if they like your LinkedIn, you connect with them and then you talk to them through emails. And that's the most beautiful way to start shadowing research, work and so much more.
Mhm.
So LinkedIn is very effective. Like I spend most of my times on LinkedIn instead of Instagram. For Instagram, I only use it to like, message people.
Yeah.
All of my friends are Instagram, right? But for LinkedIn, I spend my time to pick out the people that I will send my emails to. Because I'll just say, hey, let's grab a coffee. Let's coffee and chat. Most
Yeah.
people like to do that.
Mhm.
Smart people like to meet smart people.
Yeah.
If you're as passionate as much as you write your own profile and then you will meet people and send emails, I'm pretty sure they like it too.
Mhm.
So I feel like LinkedIn is very important. Through LinkedIn, you can do a lot of different things, research and so much more. So do your LinkedIn. Make your LinkedIn as possible.
Mhm. Perfect. I already tell my friends to be locked in is to be LinkedIn. So
Yeah, I mean, you met me through LinkedIn. You sent me
yeah,
the.
I did. Yeah,
And you have to know people on LinkedIn are very supportive.
they are.
They're
Yeah.
very supportive. Like, because you're working hard. You're passionate. Why would I not help you?
Yeah. I met so many great people through LinkedIn, genuinely. All right. What many pre-med struggle with self-doubt despite their many achievements. And when you're in pre-med, you feel like everyone has the perfect research or perfect clinical experience, perfect MCAT score. So what steps would you recommend for students to build their confidence and feel capable that they and their achievements are able to get them through medical school and in life in general?
So just like I said before, a lot of different people, a lot of motivation speakers, but like, you can do it. You
Mhm,
can fight for it. I think it's kind of meaningless.
mhm,
Have you ever actually not feeling the self guiltiness or like self doubts after hearing that? Not me.
mhm,
The reason you have a self dub, you have to reflect yourself. Like sit down and reflect yourself. Why do I dubbing myself? Why do I dubbing my ability? And you have to write out your feelings. And then you have to write out to see if you're actually not capable of doing it, or you're just afraid of it, or is this your first time? It's either one of three. You're really stuck at it, or is just fearing for it, or is this your first time? There's a one of three. And you have to write out your mind map saying that if I'm really bad at it, what should I do? Fix it. You have to do better now, right? If you're scared about the physics midterm, you have to ask yourself, why am I so scared of it? Maybe you ruined your second one. I mean, maybe you ruined your last physics or last mathematics. Maybe you have a reason for it, right? Then you have to fix it. Then you have to study for it. So that's way for you to actually fix your self-dub. And if you fear for it because you have never tried it for yourself, then you have to ask yourself the questions. Why do I fear of it? Is because of your biologically set it to fear of something so you can succeed better. So you can, calm yourself with that thing. And if you're just dubbing for it, you can just tell yourself that, hey, I'm dubbing myself so I can do better and spend more time studying. I'm not actually dubbing myself. I'm just preparing myself more. There's a mechanism in my brain to tell me to do better. And that self-talking is very effective because your brain cannot differentiate the talks you do to yourself compared to whatever others say it. So that's a way for you to spend time for you to reflect, and it's good for you to make the mind map for yourself, and maybe hang it on the wall or something, and you're thinking to yourself like, why do I feel this way? And it's either one of three, then you can follow the routes to answer the questions, and then do the things you should do. I will be really honest. Most of the time, people self-doubt because they're actually bad at it, and they have to fix it. But people
Yeah.
don't do it. People don't fix themselves. Most of the time, you have a self-doubt because you're actually bad at it.
Mhm.
But people don't fix this, but you should fix it. But if it's not the first one, and if it's the first time doing it, or is it because they just have anxiety, then you have to talk to yourself, I'm just having it because of waiting for me to not to fail. So those are very important.
Do you think people make the mistake of still finding the root of their self-doubt, but just not addressing it properly?
Mm, mm, yeah, because some people lie to themselves. Many people lie to themselves. Uh, yeah, I mean, that's the thing you have to ask yourself a question. All of the problems you have to find it with yourself. That sounds very psychiatrist, but you have to find it within yourself because the reason is people know answer. People do know the answer. It's just they don't face it. They don't face the reality for it. Like, how do I get the better score in MCAT? How do I get the better score in the organic chemistry? Just study for it, sucker. It's very easy. People asking questions as if there's a way for it without studying for it.
Mhm.
I remember when I was training my students for organic chemistry, I would ask them, so would you do anything to get A in organic chemistry? And they're like, yeah, I would sell my soul to fucking devil to get the A's in A organic chemistry. And I remember talking to them like, hey, you didn't have to sell your soul to organic chemistry devil, bro. You could study for it, you get an A. They're like, I can't study for it. It's kind of stupid. It's very simple. Answer is already there. You just have to fight for it. You don't want to face the reality for it. Why? Because the reality is painful. You have to sit down and actually do your thing.
Yeah.
Reality is painful, but reality is the most effective. Once you fix your reality, then you would have no problems at all. Yeah.
Oh, is that our
So
last question?
that was the last question, but I still want to ask you a question.
Right.
So, what is your reason to choose psychology major?
Yeah. So I grew up, in a Bangladeshi household, and I kind of grew up thinking, psychology and psychiatry, they weren't necessarily legitimate medical fields. And then I got older, and then I started facing and learning that I was neurodivergent, and I became so involved in this field of this mystery of what psychology and psychiatry is. And I really do believe that it's incredibly underrated and that people need to take the time to look at themselves and who they are and how they are valid in their own ways in order to be better people. We're seeing this collapse in society with political polarization. We're seeing flaws in the medical field. There's so many different social issues, and I really do feel that if we all collectively prioritize our wellness, our well-being, and took the time to understand ourselves, we would just be a better society as a whole.
Mm, that's good. Since there are a lot of stigma in Asian American communities about the psychiatry, so
Mhm.
I think that's a very, very important. And lastly, um, why medicine? I'm just curious. It's not an interview question. I'm just asking
Yeah,
why medicine?
that's a good question. So actually, I never thought that I would be pre-med in high school. I actually started in my roots in research. So I took this program called AP Capstone. So it's a research program, AP similar than AP research. And then I created this treatment for empathy development. And so it was a neuropsychological empathy development treatment. I published that research and actually went to an APA conference in San Diego. And then in my senior year of high school, I worked as a research assistant for the UCR Social Neuroscience Lab. So
Mm,
social neuroscience and research was my big thing. I told myself I'm not going to get into medicine because doctors have become, so tied to insurance companies. They're restricted in the way that they can treat people, and they're only able to do what the DSM says. And I thought the DSM was terrible. I still do. I think it's not culturally competent, and I don't think it's really addressing, the different factors of all mental disorders. So I told myself I was not going to become a doctor. I was going to become a researcher and fix the DSM. But then later I realized, there is a way for me to make changes in medicine. And I met different psychiatrists who opened me up to this new realm of you can do both. You can do research and you can pursue medicine and you can treat patients the way you may have wanted to be treated and the way I want other people who are, in ethnic households to be treated. Because in certain places, you're not really getting that biopsychosocial treatment and recognition that you deserve. So that's why I decided to pursue medicine as well as research.
that's amazing. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That's beautiful. That's really good. I like it.
Thank you so much. Any other questions?
No, that's it. I just wanted to ask the question. You're very
Mhm.
passionate, and then, I believe you'll become a great physician.
Thank you so much. That means a lot because I'm nervous. I'm so nervous. I don't know if you could tell.
What, when do you start? Did you already start school?
No, I did the UCR Jumpstart program. That was a week, and then I'm gonna move into my dorm on the 22nd, and I'll start classes officially on the 26th.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah,
You go like 2 weeks.
yeah. So coming
Oh,
soon.
that's great. You got this.
Thank you.
So it's a
Re-
fall quarter, right?
Yeah, fall quarter. So yeah, reach out anytime if you ever have. If there any way I can help you or work with you in research, please reach out because I would love to.
That's amazing. Thank you very much for coming here today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This was really so insightful.
Well, it's insightful to all of our members too. Thank you.
Uh-huh. Of course.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Enjoy your night. I hopefully will see you maybe soon.
Yep. We'll
Yeah.
we'll do. Thank you. Bye.
All right, good night.